And also, most important here in this comp, again, like when we're looking at these types of comps, analyzing comps, look out for the sore thumb. Look out for who's sticking out. Yeah, look out for who doesn't really fit into the playstyle of the rest of the team. The only real player like this we can see is the Tracer. Yeah, somewhat the D.Va, but mostly the Tracer, right? So what do we know? What do we know the Tracer's got to do? The Tracer's going to be doing her best to deny any sort of off angle. Yeah, because again, what do we know about the monkey dives? If he's coming in main and his team doesn't have an off angle, that dive isn't going to work, right? So even if EQO, even if he does nothing other than kind of stop any sort of off angle and make sure that when Spark are engaging, they're all going in the same line, he's doing his job, yeah? And D.Va is going to be helping Tracer with that. They can kind of do the same role. So what are we looking for? We're looking to see how Spark rotate, and we're looking to see how EQO and Hotba perform in denying the off angles. Yeah, so that's the main thing that we're looking for. We're still alive. My thing's frozen on my phone. Okay, we're still working. Anyway, so that's the type of thing that we're looking for. It's going to be interesting to see whether Spark actually try and take a fight or whether they just try and build nano first. We see them swap to the hanzo, which is good. And again, it's like, what do we talk about whenever we're playing defense? We don't have the freedom about choosing when we peak our angle, right? If we're playing on defense, we have to peak this, right? Which means that our first shield we put down is always being wasted. So even though, you know, we see Ashe, we see, you know, Orisa, Bap, all these players that are good at shooting, this hanzo alone should be enough to break the shield, force the team back. Yeah, just from the nature of playing on the attack. So we'll see what happens here. Just kind of see what they do. And again, they know EQO's on the right side. He's going to kind of try and stop the off angle. We see Architect going all the way behind. See that pays off. Again, at this stage of the fight, we're not really expecting anything. We're just kind of building nano. Dive goes in. What do we do when the dive goes in? It looks like they're trying to force some sort of rotation. Does the Ana make it across? She stays main, which is okay. Not particularly crazy about this though, because if Fusion see the Ana here, they're just going to drop on her and kill her. So I don't know why they're going for this type of rotation. She makes it across somehow. Anyway, so okay, so we're talking as well about the kind of passive advantage, right? Again, whenever we're looking at comps, talking about the passive advantage. Now, again, you would think, glancing at the comps, that Fusion are the team that has it, right? Just because they have so much poke damage. They have the shields, they have the healing, they have everything they need. But when we think about the comp a little bit more, we can understand that actually Spark is the team with the passive advantage, right? Because if they go slow and they don't engage, what are they building? They're building nano. And typically, nano is enough to dive straight in and get a play, right? And also, they kind of have more freedom to fight on the flanks a little bit. I know the Brig can heal the EQO when he's fighting on the flanks. But again, what have we got? We've got Brig, we've got Tracer, Hanzo can help as well, D.Va can help, Ana can help. You know, we should be able to control flanks, should be able to slowly force Fusion to group up as 6, yeah? And again, if we can do that, then we should have an easy time diving straight in. The other thing that Spark have going for them in terms of the passive advantage is that they can do this where they start contesting point, yeah? Because if Fusion drop too early, what do we see? We see a push, you know, we see Spark go in while Spark still have resources, right? So one of the things that Fusion are looking to do, because they are at that passive advantage, is to interrupt, is to go for a tempo play, a disruptive play. And this comp is actually really well equipped at doing that, right? I know it's a lot of theory before we've actually watched it, but I just want to make sure we understand how this comp can work, yeah? Because we have the Brig, because we have the D.Va, because we have the Orisa especially, and the Bap as well. Heroes that are very comfortable, always moving, always rotating position. Again, when we're playing Orisa, we're not sitting back, we're not spamming, we're not firing pulls across the map. What are we trying to do? We're trying to walk onto people. We're trying to catch people with the Orisa pulls while they're rotating, yeah? And that's a super important part of understanding how this comp works, right? That's how this comp wants to play in most situations, but especially when they're playing versus a dive comp, and especially when they're playing at a passive advantage, at a passive disadvantage, right? Because Fusion know if they wait too long, they're going to be going up against Nano, they're going to be going up against Tracers on the flank, Hanzo's going to be spamming them, threat of picks and stuff. So they're going to look for these types of plays where they walk in with the Orisa pulls, try and catch enemies, again, while they're resetting, right? What did we just see? We saw Guchue dive up, use a bubble, D.Va used all the Matrix, Ana rotated across, used the nade, we saw packs out from Brig, right? So again, Spark right now are in downtime. Now, hopefully we see kind of Fusion look for a chance to push in and punish them before they can heal up, right? Oh, thanks for the sub, Gugar. Is Hanzo weird in the monkey comp? Wouldn't you rather have Sombra Echo Ashe? In a default situation, yes. right? But because they're playing King's Row first attack, because they're playing against an Orisa, the Hanzo works really well, right? Because you can shoot them on high ground, force them to hide, you know, make sure you're not getting spammed by the Ash as much. And again, very easy to break this Orisa shield nowadays, right? And as soon as that shield's broken, it's very scary for the Ash to peek, very scary for the Hanzo, sorry, for the BAP to peek, right? Just because a random Hanzo log could come flying in and kill you, right? Hanzo's also very good at controlling this flank, good at scouting for traces as well, so he does fit well in this situation. We would probably expect him to swap going into streets, maybe, but we'll see what happens there. Anyway, carrying on. We see mana drop, which he needs to. Fusion playing pretty patiently here. Again, they're trying to set up a decent fight before they push on point. And again, we see how important it is. Sorry, we see how important it is for them not to just kind of chill the back. In this kind of first fight here, they nano the brick. Okay. In this kind of first fight here, the type of thing we're looking for from Spark isn't necessarily to force point straight away. They can force point, but they wouldn't really want to fight it, which is again why I'm slightly confused about the Ana rotation. Yeah. If Ana, instead of rotating this way through point, is kind of playing around the hotel, you have a chance to disengage when the enemy team drop. You know? So again, what do we see? We saw mana drop, we saw mana go to contest point. If the rest of his team was safe and alive, right? So the Ana is safe over here, Brig is maybe here as well with a Hanzo. We kind of see a completely different fight, right? Because when mana drops, when the team drops, then Gushui, who should have his cooldowns back, can jump up on high ground, fight the people high ground. And then if we have, you know, EQ hitting the flank like this, at least we have a Brig there and Ana there to help keep our Hanzo alive, right? We don't have our Ana and our Brig getting caught by the push. So again, I'm not too crazy about this first rotation. I'll have a quick look at how it's done. Again, like, this isn't a comfortable position for Ana. We can see how she's looking around constantly. She's got no idea what's going on. If she's in this position over here with the Hanzo, with the Brig as well, probably, then we're a lot more comfortable. Again, very different situation to when we're seeing the Lucio Moira. If they're playing the Lucio Moira, this makes a little bit more sense because all four heroes can get out or push, right? But the Ana, the Brig, fairly stationary if they're getting engaged onto. So I know there's a lot of time we spent looking at this first fight, but we're just kind of warming up, seeing what this comp's capable of. Yeah, okay, I don't want the Nano's doing out already, but I don't want the Rally's doing out already either. Again, Coldest seems like an okay Ana. I don't want to judge him too much. I think he can do fine, but Mika, I haven't been too impressed with him. I don't like to call out players too much, but Mika's, whenever I've looked at Spark's games, and it honestly hasn't really been that much, I've always been somewhat confused. Mostly by what Mika does. Yeah? Anyway, what are we seeing here? We're seeing the soft dive from Gushui. Again, critical thing here with his dives. Very important thing for Monkey players to understand, right? Is that Gushui is not jumping to fight. He knows that as soon as he jumps in, all the attention on Fusion is going to be on him, right? So he can't afford to wait here until he drops low and then go to point. He's got to do it straight away, because again, what's he trying to do? He's not trying to fight. All he's trying to do is make a little bit of a distraction to allow his team to rotate in. Yeah. So because of the fact he still has his bubble and didn't use it, now he can actually use it to fight on point. But what are we seeing again? We're seeing Fusion, again, play ruthlessly. They know they're at that disadvantage. If they wait too long, Spark are going to kind of win because they're playing this dive comp that has more control of the flanks. So what do? As soon as they see Monkey commit jump, they're pushing him with a rally, right? And again, we talk all the time about mindsets, yeah? Mindsets with the ults, the support ults especially, right? There seems to be this idea that supports, they're standing at the back, they're standing alive. That's not the case, yeah? As soon as we have a chance to push, force enemy reactions, that's what we're trying to do. So as soon as we see the monkey jump out, we know he's in some sort of downtime because he can't escape. That's when we're pushing, right? So again, even though Fusion aren't playing like a Brig Zen ball comp, where they can control flanks, push in, they can still do it with the Orisa, right? So again, what's that other thing we always say? We say that comp isn't a comp. You know, they're not playing an Orisa comp. They're not playing an Ashe comp, BAP comp, nothing, right? There's no name for this comp. What they're doing is they're playing in a playstyle, yeah? And that playstyle they can play whether they're on Orisa, they can play it whether they're on ball. Their comp suits their playstyle, not the other way around, right? So again, you're choosing the playstyle and then you're picking your heroes to fit that playstyle. Right now they're playing a great playstyle to stop the monkey from getting anything done, as we can see. If Spark wanted to do this a little bit better, we'd like to see them take more time rotating in. We'd probably like to see them only committing to that type of play once they have the ults that enable them to do it, right? Again, kind of awkward situation. Because the way that Fusion are playing, hopefully Shy realizes he's not getting too much out of the Hanzo. Maybe he swaps after the ult, but we'll see. Because again, it is awkward for Spark, because Fusion are playing a good comp for it. Because EQO, you can't actually see him, but he's down the bottom of the screen here. It makes it awkward for them to rotate up this way. And again, they don't want to take super long rotations in LOS, just because they're going to get spammed. You know, Ashe is going to spam them, Bap's going to spam them, Trace is going to contest them, and so on, right? So it is an awkward situation for Spark. It's possible they'd get more value out of something like a Lucio Reaper, right? Because that means they can rotate super quick through enemy LOS. They can TP up the Reaper. They can jump in. They can keep the Ana, yeah, so we keep the Ana. We nade in as well. And then we have a big explosive kind of momentum when we push. Then we can still drop back to point afterwards, right? So like, keep an eye out for the Reaper Lucio stuff, because it can work really well when teams are playing kind of Ashe and Bap and that type of thing. Right. So again, talking quite a lot, but what do we see here? Again, we know that Fusion's comp can work very well against Dive if they're interrupting the staging. If they're playing too slow and they're allowing Monkey to go in, go out, go in, go out, then we're going to see Fusion lose, just because Spark are going to build the ults, and at some point Hanzo's going to hit a shot, at some point Architect's going to succeed at his flank, right? So what do we see Fusion do? We see them disrupting that setup, right? Why is Shockwave here? Because he has Bob, because I expect he's going to come out here, use the Bob, while the rest of the team tries to push in and get something done, right? So we'll see how it works out. Great, perfect, right? So we'll see if he actually gets kills, but whether he gets kills or not isn't really the point, right? The fact that they are disrupting the tempo is the best thing for it. And if it doesn't work out, then you know you can go back in VODs and you can look and you can say, oh, we didn't scout them properly, oh, we waited too long, whatever, right? But the fact they went for it is, that's exactly what we're looking for. And Fusion in this map, in the last map as well, from last stream on Volskaya, that's what we saw them do. Yeah. And the thing as well is that even though it seems like they didn't get that much because they only got like 1 kill, the fact that they've delayed Spark's momentum, right? The fact that now Spark are now taking much more time pushing in and you've wasted that, you know, 20, 30 seconds, that's still a good trade for the defending team. It could have been better, but it's still a good trade, yeah? So, what do we see? We see Gusha go in. This fight, if Spark are going to win a fight, it's probably going to be this fight, purely because we finally hit the Nano and the Primal at the same time, yeah? So we'll see. Pressure in the Monkey Primals. Again, now we've got a lot of space, a lot of time that the rest of the team can use to push forward. Then the Nano comes in. Very awkward position to get dealt a Nano Monkey. We'll see how it works. Killing the Shockwave is pretty critical. Chances are Shockwave could have gotten out. We'll have a quick glance just to see whether he could have, right? See whether he needed to get split. Because again, it's like, Shockwave should understand that. So Prime comes out here, Nano comes out here. Shockwave should understand that it seems like it's just a miscommunication because the rest of the team jumps out the window, he jumps back, right? So we'll see. We're not in comms, can't say exactly why, but Shockwave should have managed to get out here, right? Shockwave should understand that, like, if he's trying to stay up top because he likes this window here, he should understand that he's never going to take an angle while the enemy team's engaging like this, yeah? Like, Fusion, they need to chill out, they need to wait, they need to not really do anything too serious until this Monkey's cleared, right? Because they already used those ults, the Bongo and the Bob, which are 2 great tools for interrupting that momentum before Gushue can make his push. Because they've already used those things, the only real thing Fusion can do is kind of chill at the back, try and clear the Monkey, and then push back in with whatever they have. So again, we've kind of hit that last fight on the attack that we see quite a lot, where the attacking team finally build enough ults just to kind of muscle their way through, yeah? Because most of the time, talking about comps as comps is enough, right? But when you're thinking about swaps and stuff, right? So when you're thinking about, like, oh, when we play an orisa comp, why are we swapping to the Ana? Again, really nice example here, right? So it's the same comp, basically, same comp, but we swap to the Ana. Why do we swap to the Ana? Because the Ana fits the playstyle better than the Batiste does, right? So even though it's the same, like, same comp, same playstyle, like, all purposes, basically exactly the same, right? But because the Ana fits the playstyle better than the Bap does, and again, what's the playstyle? The playstyle isn't sitting at the back healing, it's pushing onto people. catching people on flanks, disrupting people on flanks. So the Ana is much better because she can sleep people, she can nade people. She doesn't, like, the team doesn't need the sustained healing in backline, right? Because the team isn't sitting at the back, the team is pushing. Yeah. And again, any sleep, any nade does great. An alarm, fantastic Ana. Yeah. So, yeah. So again, what are we seeing? We're seeing them walk up main. We're not seeing them waste time. We're going to see probably an orisa pull, a bongo, maybe even a rally pushing in to close it out. Yeah. Again, anything they have, again, perfect ultimate usage, right? Anything they have is used to push forward, catch these opponents, right? See if this dragon gets any value. It's not bad. It's okay. Unlucky kill onto EQO, but we can see the Ana's doing work, right? We can see we see the sleeves, we see the nades, you know, we see the healing too, the single target healing, you know, working really well already, right? So again, same comp, same playstyle, just that Ana suited it better, so that's why we see the swap, right? And if we can teach our players to kind of think about these matchups in terms of playstyle rather than just about comp, then it means our players can make better kind of on-the-fly decisions about when to swap heroes, right? So yeah, very good. And with that type of play we're looking for, that's how they got to play versus the Ana comp. Obviously Spark recognized this, which is why they then swapped to just the kind of standard 6-man, right? I don't know if I would. I guess it's fine. I guess it works fine. And again, I think Spark are kind of really committing to playing monkeys, so this is kind of, they only really have 2 comps they can play. Anyway, what are we seeing here? Seeing them walk in. Is this a map where they have good stabilization positions? They have this one on the corner. That's about it. What we're going to see them do, right? They can't wait. They need to keep pushing and keep fighting, but they need to always be ready to disengage. So again, when we talk about this comp, we're talking about when they push forward. What are they doing? They're pushing forward. They're using speed boost. They're using matrix. They're holding the jumps, right? So we've still got monkey jump, still got diva shift, still got translocator, still got reaper shift, still got fade, right? So when we push in, enemy team use a lot of ults, we can still get out, right? I say it every time, but we see a lot of mistakes with it. That's a lot for me to take in. Yeah, hopefully it makes sense, right? And it's kind of, it's something that took me a while to like fully understand too. And it's again, it was like, I went from working with teams or like working as a player with other coaches that I never really gelled with because they were focused way too much on like super specific kind of flowchart Overwatch, right? And sometimes the flowchart stuff is useful, like when we're talking about how to play the default of a comp, when we're talking about speed boosting in, jumping out, that type of thing. But when it's about like wider things like hero swaps or like how to take every fight, you know, like how to react to things, then we need to kind of widen our concepts a bit, right? And thinking about playstyle rather than comp can be a really useful way of doing that. Anyway, what are we going to see? The other thing that this comp can go for when they have the primal, again, super important thing to mention, although we're probably not going to see it because the Sombra's here, right? Whenever we have primal, because of the way the ults are used in this comp, I know they're just swapped, but also the way that the ults are used in this comp, quite a lot will end up with primal and nothing else, right? Because whenever we have a fight that we have Cole, EMP, even Sound Barrier, we'll lead with those first and we won't use the primal, right? So typically it ends up that once every few fights with this comp, we'll end up with the primal by itself, right? And obviously the question is, what do we do in those fights? You know, because it's like, we don't have a nice support ult, and the primal isn't really enough to directly engage with, right? So typically what we'll see is we'll see the Sombra go all the way behind and set up a 2-man dive with the monkey. The rest of the team can still play as normal. Again, these 4 players can still play as normal, but what we'll see is the monkey go all the way in. As the Sombra cloaks behind, the monkey will try and primal someone, and together with the Sombra, they'll try and kill the target, right? So that's typically what we see with this comp when we have the primal up and nothing else. Doesn't look like they're going to go for it, but if they had the time to set up for it, or if Shy was setting up for it, then it probably would work pretty well, right? So we'll see what they do. Again, we don't want to see them waiting too long. Like, their comp works okay, but they do want to be careful. Okay, that's good. And again, like, we see the strengths of just kind of walking in and then still having our cooldowns, right? Because again, I'm not going to go through every player's POV and talk about like what exactly they were doing, because honestly, I would have preferred that they walked up forwards, and then as soon as the ults came out from Fusion, you know, the rally, bongo, Hopper's bomb, we see the team actually go all the way back, right? Instead, they kind of stay here and try and commit ults and try and fight, which I'm not crazy about. But we can see because they still had those cooldowns, they were able to survive all of that, right? They even got 2 kills. Now it might be a little bit too late, and they might still lose, but we'll see. Why Fusion playing Ana over BAP? Because Fusion, they're not sitting at the back, right? They're not sitting at the back, they're not taking dives. Sorry, they're not sitting at the back, they're not catching dives, they're actually rotating and trying to fight people. Just before this, Spark was playing Ana Brick, right? And they were kind of playing a much slower comp, like Spark were, but they're flanking a little bit slower, and they're taking their time to build the nano before they engage. And the way Fusion are beating that is by actually pushing in, you know, pushing round flanks, pushing onto people, catching them with the orisa pull, and Ana just kind of suited that playstyle a little bit better over Batiste, right? Now we're in this comp. It's kind of either or, whether you want to play BAP or Ana. I probably would keep playing Ana, but kind of depends. Anyway, I don't really know why Spark aren't just disengaging and resetting. Again, like we saw this a lot, yeah. We see this a lot with all these teams trying to play Moira Lucio, is that somehow they never call to back up and reset, right? And again, without being in the comms, it's really difficult to say why. But how long do we see this fight go on for? Yet we never see the tanks group up with the supports, right? Even though this Lucio dies, we have so much of a chance that the rest of the team, what does this team want to do here, right? They want to back up. They have the monkey bubble, they go here, Diva goes here, Sombra comes here, Moira comes here. Now you have, it doesn't matter you lose the Lucio, you can afford to lose a Lucio. He's just a Lucio, right? But the rest of the team can group up, they can heal up to full, not going to take them a very long time. Probably all this health pool is actually going to give Coldest his coalescence, and then they can push him with that, right? So again, when we talk about the cycle, going in, going out, going in, going out, we do it with this comp, we do it mid-fight too, yeah? So like, I'll go back a little bit further just so we can see. We try and decide when they should have actually done this. You see they're coming, this is fine. We see the nano come out, we see the bomb come out. Now's the point where I probably would want the whole team just to run away and hide and do a first reset. But they stay, which again, I'm not crazy about. But it's alright. Then we get the 2 kills. Now we're fighting a little bit, but then we get naded, we hit a rally, our Lucio dies, right? So now surely is the time that we'd want to like back up. Now surely is the time, right now is where we want to go for a reset. Now is a perfect time because we have the monkey bubble. We have everything we need to go for a reset, but no one on the team is calling it. Really difficult to understand why. Yeah. And with this comp, you cannot cheat. You cannot try and, you know, skip the stages. You cannot try and just carry on pushing. Because as soon as you run out of those cooldowns, as soon as you run out of the monkey cooldowns, Diva cooldowns, Reaper cooldowns, you die. So you have to keep resetting them. And the fact that Spark don't make the call to go for it here is the reason that they lose. Yeah. Again, if they'd reset, tanks would be full health, Reaper would be alive, Coldest would have built his coalescence, and right now they'd be pushing onto these final players on Fusion, they'd be pushing onto them using the coalescence. Yeah. So again, we're seeing a lot of these kind of mid-fight mistakes. We've seen it from every team so far that's tried to play this Lucio Moira comp, which again, very confusing, right? Because it's not a tremendously difficult comp to understand. So we know that when things are going wrong, it's not really to do with understanding. It's probably to do with, you know, something communication, something mentality related. Yeah. It could also be like a understanding problem. Like I'm not fully convinced that all of like teams and coaches in Overwatch League actually understand these comps. You know, because we see so many mistakes with them that you'd think at some point they would have fixed them. Anyway, what are we looking at now? We're looking at the Orisa comp. And again, when we're talking about meta, towards the end we did see Orisa comps very, very, very strong. Yeah. Again, just because they work really well in that playstyle where you're disrupting players on the flanks. Now, what are we looking at here? We're seeing some small swaps from Fusion. We're seeing them play Reapers. We're seeing them play, what's it called, Kreese. And again, what do we know about these two heroes? They are perfect at forcing these rotations. They're perfect at muscling through on the flank, right? Because again, when we look at, yeah, nice handing out of spawn. Nice little bit of Volt Charge, but didn't really care too much, not that much. Again, nice of them to get it though. Hopper should really be eating them. if it is like the standard nade. Anyway, sorry, yeah. So what do we know about Spark's comp? We know that whenever Monkey's taking a dive, for it to work, he's got to have angles. Yeah, he's got to have angles. Now, the way that Fusion are countering that isn't by surviving the Monkey, isn't just by healing Monkey. It's by rotating around the map and clearing out one of those angles. Yeah, purely because they are rotating around the edge of the map. Like on one side of the map over here, they have the edge. There can be no players here, right? Whereas if they thought, oh, hey, we're playing Kree, we're playing Brig, we're playing BAP, we can just survive, and they run here and go on point, what's going to happen? They're going to get off-angled, Monkey's going to come in, Nade's going to come in, they're going to die, right? So before they can even think about going point, they use the strength of all 6 of these heroes together to do their first rotation as 6 and clear out a flank, right? Only once they've done that can they even think about going to point, right? And this is a really critical thing for teams that like to play a 6 to understand, is that yes, the playstyle can work, but the way it works isn't by going to point and brawling, it's by first taking a big rotation at a long distance away from the enemy team. And when we talk about the enemy team, typically we're talking about their backline. We're taking a rotation a long distance away from the enemy team so that we can clear a flank. So we know that on our right or on our left, there are no enemies behind us. Yeah. So that's exactly what they're doing here. We should see them just come out on high ground, play this monkey. Again, shouldn't be too difficult. The monkey's cleared. Now what are we doing? We're dropping, continuing the rotation. Weird. Anyway, like the way that Spark need to take this is they need to let Fusion get onto point. They need to let Fusion take, 30%, 40%, 50% while they set up a good fight. Great on EQO here to take this flank and pressure Architect. Again, we can imagine if EQO doesn't take this flank, doesn't pressure Architect, what do we see? We see Architect come around, maybe hit the flank at the same time as Quickfire goes in. Yeah. So again, when we're looking at Fusion's comp, we're trying to disrupt that staging. This is a great way of disrupting staging. Even though Reaper you might not typically think is the best hero to fight a Tracer, he can fight a Tracer for a long time without dying. Yeah. So he can keep this Tracer distracted, and if he keeps this Tracer distracted, when the rest of the team, so when the Anna's on uptime throwing nades, when the Monkey's on uptime diving in, if you can keep the Tracer out of that, then that's great value from a Reaper. Yeah. I don't know why Quickfire doesn't go for this dive here. I think it's mostly because the Tracer gets forced out. Because again, we can imagine how is this fight different if Tracer isn't forced out? Tracer comes in, Monkey comes in, Anna nades in if she's got it, Diva flies in, Brig does whatever, right? But still a very, very good fight if this Tracer can hit the flank. Because the Tracer can't hit the flank, because EQO came around, this fight's never going to work, which I assume is why Quickfire kind of jumps high ground instead of going all the way in, right? Because he knows that if he goes in, he'll just get kind of dealt with, right? The fact that Coldest is crossing here and not waiting for the call, because again, we can imagine Monkey team, they should know how to play these comps. Communication is a huge part of it, right? Again, we talk about how we don't like communication. Not that we don't like communication, is that we don't like communication that is kind of a waste of time. The comms that we want to be hearing is mostly to do with timings, yeah? The Monkey's jumped up top, he's not going to engage for another couple seconds, right? Because he's waiting for his DPS to get in position, right? Which means that Coldest should know this and shouldn't be peeking, right? He can just hide here, doesn't have to do anything. Enemy team doesn't know where he is properly, right? Ideally, he's gone all the way across instead of drop, and he can kind of hide up here and then jump out when his team's going in. But he's dropped in main, which is fine. Because again, we don't really care about his exact position, we care about his timing. Why is he peeking main while the rest of his team is waiting to set up, or, sorry, taking their time to set up? Who knows, right? But so there must be some sort of issue with comms going on with Spark, right? And again, we don't like to assume too much. Like, we can't really assume the position of a coach when we're analyzing these things, just because we can't hear the comms, right? But it seems like there is some sort of issue with communication that means that Spark isn't finding the resets with the Lucio Moira comp and isn't matching their timings with these comps either. Yeah. But again, the main thing that we want to talk about this fight is EQO, great on him, dropping left, contesting the Tracer. That is critical to this fight, right? So even before we've had any kills, the fact that EQO drops left and kind of wins that duel with Architect, forces out the recall, right? That was enough for Fusion to basically win the fight. Yeah. Again, we don't care as much about Coldest's death, sorry, but we do care about this little duel here. So again, really good to see. Again, did Architect need to get pushed out there? No, right? He should have been checking his flank. The fact he had his back to this area here is the reason he got pushed out. Right? Wait, I need to get my... So dropping again. And now this dive, it works a little bit better. Still not good enough. Fusion's comp, very, very well equipped to deal with those types of dives. Yeah. So we should see Spark swap here. I wouldn't expect to see them try and stay on this. I don't know what they'll swap to. Maybe they'll go back to the Reaper stuff. I guess they can't swap, actually. Just because they spawn so close, but... That's alright. As long as we build a nano this fight, they're in with a good chance. And again, talking about the reason why Fusion's comp is good, is because when we look at Spark's comp, we know that Spark can only survive after they go in. They can only stay in the fight for about 2 seconds, right? Even that is a long time for them, yeah? Because as soon as they start to stay in the fight, we see Monkey Bubble get broken, we see Matrix start to run out, Briggs run out of packs, Anna doesn't have nade. You know, our Sombra, when she uncloaks, she can't stand that angle very long. She's getting forced out, Tracer Recall's getting forced, right? So again, they're relying on these cooldowns in their uptime. Their uptime is not very long, just because most of their uptime is relying on the Monkey Bubble, right? So they got to get value before that Monkey Bubble breaks. Now, when we look at Fusion's comp, we know that they're going to be absolutely happy in that situation, yeah? Because they have, what do they have? They have these two heroes, never going to die, right? Never going to die to that initial engage. Don't worry about them. We have the BAP and the Brig, again, not going to die. They're going to be able to keep each other alive for a super long time, bar an EMP, maybe a nano primal, right? So in those default engages, they can keep each other alive for a very long time, very, very happy, right? Also, bear in mind, because the Brig, obviously she can hit the whip shots, don't really care about that too much right now. Thinking more about what the Brig does to the other players on her team. When the other players on her team, especially the Batiste, know they have a Brig, they don't have to worry so much about staying alive, right? Because they know they have a Brig to back them up. The same way that with the Batiste, the knowledge that you have a lamp that you can throw out to keep a player alive means you can relax a little bit, right? You don't have to be super stressed about hitting the right timing because you have a lot of you have a good safety net with these two supports. Now, again, when we talk about the most important resource, that is attention. What this means is that we don't have to waste attention on staying alive because we have this safety net. So when we get dived, our Kree can keep shooting. Our BAP can keep shooting. Again, which is critical, because what does it mean? It means we're breaking that Monkey Bubble faster. It means we're forcing out those DPS faster. Yeah. Bear in mind as well, the only player that's ever really going to die in this comp is going to be the Kree. Yeah. Because the BAP's going to be jumping up and down. Brig, she's got shield, she's going to be fine, and she's going to get a lot of support from BAP. Right? The Kree's kind of the most vulnerable player on the team. And if Kree's the most vulnerable player, then your comp is in a very, very good spot. Yeah. And again, just because we've got lots of sustain from this team. Right? So hopefully that makes sense. When Spark go in, very, very easy for Fusion to break that Monkey Bubble, force out those DPS before Spark get value. And if that happens, Fusion are just going to win all of these fights. Yeah. The only thing they're really afraid of is those big engages, you know, EMPs, nanos, primals, right? But even those, they're in a pretty good chance to deal with, just because they have Fortify, they have Wraith, they have Lamp, they have rallies and stuff too. And again, we can see these little jewels going up here with EQO. He's never expecting to win them, right? He's not expecting to win these jewels. He's just expecting to delay these heroes. He's forced the Sombra out of Invis, right? He's baiting recall. He's baiting blinks from Tracer. He's making them wait. He's making them waste their time before they engage. What do we see on the other side of the map? We see Monkey, Diva, Brig stacked up on the corner. We see Anna waiting with a nano. We see 4 players ready to engage, ready to go in. What do we see EQO doing? We see him stopping the off angle. We see him delaying the off angle. Sure, he's not going to be able to delay it for ages, but he delays it long enough for the rest of his team to push up, the cart to get super far forward, right? Which is putting a lot of stress on these players because they want to go in, they want to fight, but they've got to wait for their DPS to be in position. So these little plays that we see EQO making, they're earning Fusion so much space, right? They're delaying Spark cycles, which again is what Fusion need to do to win. So we aren't seeing Fusion just sit in the ball waiting for a dive to come in. We're seeing them disrupt staging. On their first defense, they disrupted it by pushing in with Orisa, pushing in with the Orisa pool. Yeah. On the defense, on their attack, we're seeing it mostly from EQO. We're seeing EQO contest these DPS, delaying their flank, right? And again, that's all he needs to do. But again, because he's delaying the flank, we're putting a lot of stress on these players, and we're making it so that when they do dive in, again, like we're not seeing our Orisa wait at the back, we're seeing her push in with the Orisa pool. forcing out matrix, forcing out heals. Yeah, that's what we're looking for. What does that mean? It means when the nano comes in, our off angle isn't even here, so there must be some awful communication issues going on with Spark right now, and that's super, super obvious. We watch this from overhead, we'll watch it full speed, right? We look at the DPS going for the flank, then we look at them deciding, hey, we can't go for that flank because the Reaper's there, he's forced our cooldowns, yet we still see that dive come in from Spark, but it doesn't have the critical off angle from the DPS, right? So we can see how much work these Reaper flanks are doing. He doesn't have to win the flanks at all he's doing is delaying that flank. Again, even though our Sombra gets the hack here, it's not good enough. It's not a good enough flank. If the Reaper didn't contest her, maybe she's here, and she can actually shoot. Maybe the Tracer's here as well and can actually flank. Instead, what do we see? We see a monkey diving in by himself, no off angle. What does that mean? They can't win the fight. So again, really, really nice from Fusion, right? And again, what do we see? As soon as Sparks start to go into that downtime, they're committing ults, they're walking forward, they're punishing them before they can reset. Yeah? So Fusion should be in a pretty good position, just kind of win this fight as time goes on. Great bomb. Really good bomb. I have to see that actually. Sorry. Again, I know we don't like going back and watching stuff. I just have to see how these players die. And don't get in the door in time. Oh, they get a reciprocal. Critical. Yeah. Beautiful. Alright. Again, that's what we're looking for. We're always looking forward. We're always pushing on to the backline. As soon as this monkey's forced out, what do we see? We see a bomb. We see our Orisa walking forward with the pull. That's how we're playing these comps. We're not sitting at the back. We're not trying to survive. We're only doing that when the enemy team are coming in with loads of ults, right? But then as soon as we have that opportunity, as soon as the enemy team start to run low on cooldowns, we're walking forward. So again, do we care about the specific micro of using the bomb, using the pull? No. We only care that during this period of time in the fight, during this stage of the fight, the team is looking forward. The team is trying to find options, yeah? With flashbangs, with Reaper flanks, with Erisipals, with bombs, with windows that we've just seen, and with rallies, yeah? So that's the playstyle Fusion are going for, and their comp fits it perfectly, okay? Right, so they should just win the map here. We know they win the map. Cool. Right. So, what are we seeing on this defense? We're seeing a little bit more of the monkey into the Brig Zen. Pretty much going to be the same as what we were expecting before. Like, I'll be surprised if there's anything super interesting, so we'll probably watch it pretty quick. Don't expect much here. Again, what are the three things this comp's looking to do? When the monkey goes in, we're either rotating, we're either closing distance and trying to fight with the Zarya, or we're focusing players that are getting zoned out by our monkey. Yeah, so when Tracer's in backline, Ball's in backline, sometimes we'll just turn around and focus them while they can't get healing or support from their team, right? And again, I know that Zen Brig, they don't need to, the healing isn't getting blocked by the monkey shields, but what that monkey shield is doing when our monkey jumps up, puts a shield there, it means that these players can't do damage, right? And if these players can't do damage, then these players in backline for Spark are much more comfortable walking forward and focusing that ball, focusing that Tracer, right? So even when Fusion don't have heals that are getting blocked by the monkey bubble, it's still allowing our backline to walk forward. Yeah. Sorry, it's still allowing our backline to focus these flankers, just because they know they're not going to get punished by the rest of the team. Anyway, we'll see what happens. Good for Shy to go for these flanks again. When we're looking at these types of comps, a lot of the time we're trying to catch people on flanks. We're trying to take these kind of funny peeks. Don't do a whole lot with this first dive. Well, we close distance. We get across the choke, which is good. Obviously, Gushue dies. Trade it on alarm. Don't really care too much. And again, once we can get this kind of backline unit into position, they can get so much done. And what are we talking about? We're talking about the Ana, the Brig, the Kree. Again, even if all the monkey does is allow them to get into a distance where they can kind of play the heroes they want to play and do what they want, we're very happy, yeah? Because this is a great brawl core. Because as soon as there's someone in front of them, they've got sleeps, they've got Brig stuns, they've got Kree stuns, Zarya damage, right? They can kill them super easily. As soon as they start taking pressure, they've got Brig packs, they've got Ananates, they've got defensive bubbles from Zarya, right? So it's a really, really good brawl core. If they can get into position, if they can start fighting, there's not a whole lot that's going to beat them, right? So again, even if all the monkey does is allow them to close distance and farm, then that's usually enough. So we'll see how Fusion's set up for this retake here. It should be interesting. Again, what are we looking for? We're looking for some sort of distraction play on the backline, probably. Maybe go for the Kree, maybe go for the Ana. At the same time, backline, which is these three heroes, for Fusion, we're expecting them to, you know, walk forward, get into a distance where they can fight, right? Because although, you know, these four heroes, Ana, Brig, Kree, Zarya, theoretically can beat these three, the Zen can do so much work, right? So even if they're closing distance and fighting, versus a Brawl core that seems kind of better than them, the fact you have the Discord and the Zen damage means that you do actually have a chance of trying to one-shot usually the Ana or the Brig or the Kree. Yeah. So again, we'll see. We're seeing a bit of skirmishing. Team setting up. Mostly I'm interested in Gushui, see when Gushui goes up on high ground. Mana is doing an incredible job right now. Like making the space on high ground. Because again, it's like if these players, again, we're talking about the Brawl core in the backline, if these players aren't ready to close in and get something done when Gushui goes in, all Gushui can do is buy them a little bit of time. The fact that Mana's up on high ground, you know, keeping the Zarya away, keeping the Kree away, booping the Brig off of high ground, means that whatever Mana does now, probably not a whole lot's going to come of it, right? Unless he gets a crack and dive with this Nano. Probably not a whole lot's going to come of it. Just because these players aren't ready to follow him up. Why are they not ready to follow him up? Because Mana is making so much space on this high ground here, right? Again, really good for Mana. Great use of his health pool, yeah? So even though we looked at him now, we see he's, you know, 200 health, he's used his health pool perfectly, right? See the Nano come in, decent dive, great plays from the backline, staying alive here. Counter EMP is perfect. Discord, do we get him? Do we kill him? We do. Nice. Right? During that time period, obviously they caught Carpe. Carpe probably doesn't need to die here. Let's just put that down to a mistake. But again, it's the same type of thing we're looking for. Whenever our monkey's going in, we're trying to get value by either walking in and fighting or focusing targets in backline. Yeah, Carpe probably shouldn't have gotten caught, but it's still nice that Spark are getting something done during that time period. And again, you see, when we're talking about these types of comps, you know, we've been talking about monkey comps these kind of past two streams, right? So much of it is about timings, yeah? Because we're so reliant on that uptime, downtime structure. When we're looking at bulls and comps, it's still there, but it's not quite as obvious, yeah? So again, yeah. What are we seeing here? We're seeing lots of ults getting traded. Again, we like the commitment of the trance. Because again, if you're not certain if your team's going to die if you don't pull the trance, you need to pull it. If you're delaying it and your team dies, unacceptable, yeah? Again, if you're using this early, it means the Brig has a much clearer idea about whether she needs to pull the rally. Whereas if you delay this trance like 3 seconds, just because you're trying to wait to see whether you actually survive or not, what that might mean is that when the time comes, rally gets pulled, trance gets pulled together, yeah? So again, that's why we're ulting early, because it's a clear signal to the rest of our team whether they need to use their ults as well. Right? So again, even though it might seem like, oh, I want to try and save my ult, a lot of the time, trying to save it actually means, you know, your team ends up using more ults in that fight, right? You don't want to hold it. You don't want to hold it too long. Anyway, we use the rally, we're pushing forward, trading the rallies. Who's in a better position right now? Difficult to say, really. Probably Fusion. Just because they have the Zen and the Bull still alive, and they have their DPS on strong positions on high ground. You know, very difficult for Spark to push anything. This is, again, exactly what we're looking for from Spark. What does this comp allow them to do? Allows them to hard rotate, allows them to force flanks. Very similar to what we saw on King's Row when Fusion were playing the Orisa comp. Now Spark can do that with their comp, right? Because no one player on Fusion can stand up to this type of rotation. Yeah? And again, we saw it on Volskaya too, that when we're trying to take a point, we don't want to take long dives from main when we don't need to. If the map allows us to, you know, take a flank out of enemy LOS, and instead of diving, you know, this distance, we're diving this distance, that's what we want to do. Yeah. So again, really good to see them actually going for it. Lesser teams would stay in main, keep fighting, right? So we want players that recognize these opportunities for rotations. Yeah. Again, nice boops. Ooh, Kree just about survives. They need to get up these stairs quick. They need to force the backline onto low ground. They do it. Still a little bit slow. Who knows why Shy is playing here? I can't think of a reason. Let's have a look. See what's in his head. What does he see that makes him think he wants to play here? But like he almost dies here. He just about survives. God, he just misses every. He doesn't. He hasn't hit a shot for about. Does he hit one here? Oh, he hits one. Okay, pathetic. Yeah. Like, if Shah was my teammate, I'd be fuming. Like, you're finally in a position where you can set up a night rotation. You can brawl together to take the high ground, and he's trying to play Kovacs in the back versus a Sombra and still missing every shot. Yeah, like we've seen him throw away his life to hit 80 damage onto a Sombra. Yeah, who knows? Who knows? Had, however, he rotated with the team. What do we see? We see the whole team. We see them bursting out on high ground. We see them clearing high ground super quick. Then, from that position on high ground, what can we do? We can force point. Our monkey's now also in range to dive the backline. Yeah. So again, we have options, providing we start fights with these types of rotations. Why he's playing out on that angle, I have no idea. Yeah. Again, maybe a communication issue. Obviously, I've heard that Spark are like one of the worst teams for communication because they do it in Chinese, English, and Korean, which everyone kind of memes on. It might not be as bad as it sounds, but when we're seeing stuff like this, maybe he thought the rest of his team meant they're going this way, or when we're seeing those failed stabilizations with the Lucio Moira, we know there's communication issues in there. Yeah. And again, because you don't have the Kree here, you don't have the power to run out on high ground and push him out, right? And also, because the team was waiting for him, we saw like 4 players turn around and looking at him, waiting for him to catch up. It means that we don't take high ground before Alarm and Funny Astro make this rotation. Yeah. So because we haven't taken control of high ground before the Zens peak in this angle, now we have a very, very difficult time trying to fight up top, right? So we can see how delaying by hesitating, because Shai took this angle, we've now lost the opportunity. We've lost the element of surprise that we would have had we just committed to this rotation straight away, right? So again, that's why we need teams playing faster and tempo. Yeah. Again, building that kind of discipline. Okay, interesting. Building that type of discipline in terms of tempo, in terms of rotations, in terms of committing ults when you have the opportunity, right? That's what makes Overwatch League teams win, right? It's not typically to do with understanding. It's not even typically to do with mechanics, right? It's to do with mentality. It's to do with mindset. Yeah. What is this graph? Who knows? I don't even want to see why. I think it would just make me sad. But had we seen them commit to this rotation, take a monkey dive from this position, would have been a very different fight. Yeah. We come at top, clear high ground. Now we're in range to either take a monkey dive or just try and force point. Yeah. But again, the option will make sense once we're there, right? Just the fact that Shai's taking the angle sets off that kind of cascade failure that we're always talking about, right? Anyway, anything interesting in this fight? Hopefully we see them play a little bit slower till they build the nano. Nice to see them playing the kind of longer distance here just until they get the nano. That's good from Coldest. Now we have the nano. What are we looking for? Nano on the monkey. They're all hiding. We need the nano on the monkey. Yeah? Because again, we don't typically see it with this comp, but with most comps, especially with Ryan stuff, Orisa stuff, we're seeing teams open fights with 2 ults. Right? We're seeing them use 1 ult to pin the enemy team in place. This could be a monkey diving in with nano. It could be something like an Orisa using a bongo, doing loads of damage, making the team hide. It could be a Valk doing the same thing, doing loads of damage, making the team hide. Other option, obviously, we can use High Noon for that as well. Yeah. So now, with the first ult, enemy team are hiding. What do we need to do? We need to immediately follow it up with a second ult. Could be anything. Could be the team pushing with Rally. Could be Zarya coming around with a Grav. In this situation, what makes most sense would be an immediate nano onto our monkey, right? And again, we don't need Coldest to see these players here. We don't need Coldest to actually see what's going on, because all he'd need to do is understand how the timings of these types of fights work. As soon as this High Noon comes out, we know that no one's going to be peeking it, right? They're going to take a couple seconds to hide. If we wait too long, we don't lead with the nano now, what's it going to mean? It's going to mean the rest of the team, they're going to hide, they're going to heal up, maybe they'll set up to deal with the Kree. Whereas if we do it immediately, as soon as we think the enemy team have hidden, all we're waiting is maybe 1 second, 2 seconds after the opening ult that we know is going to force the enemy team to hide. If we then send a nano, now we're going to see the kills. Yeah? And again, Coldest doesn't need to see what we're seeing. He doesn't need to be looking at the game from the top down. He should understand that just from the timings of these ults. Yeah? So if we don't see this nano come through, we're going to be very disappointed. Yeah, alright. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Right? Yeah, okay. Just a terrible fight. A terrible fight. We had such a great opening with this rotation. It was not rotation really, but like with the setup to take high ground. And like the enemy team, they didn't really have the ults to contest it. Briggs in a comfortable position, Kree's in a comfortable position. Our tanks are forcing the enemy team to contest point. So we have a great start to the fight. We have a great high noon that forces the enemy team to hide in a bad place. But then we don't have the nano to follow it up, right? So again, yeah, I don't know, just sad, right? Like we want to see commitments. We want to see Coldest especially understand the tempo of the fight. We have the bubble on the monkey as well. Why are we not seeing a nano? Why are we not seeing the team ready to commit? Yeah. Right now we want to see a nano. We want to see our Brig, our Zarya, walking around this corner with the nano. Our Trace is ready to hit the flank as well. It's perfect. We have everything going for us. The only thing we don't have is Coldest pressing Q, right? Again, I want to make it super, super clear what a missed opportunity this was. And again, Coldest doesn't have to see what we're seeing. All he has to understand is how these ults affect the enemy team. How these ults affect the timing of the fight. If these players don't understand how the tempo of these fights are working, they are not going to win matches. They are not going to make play-ins. Sorry, they're not going to make playoffs. Right? So again, simple mistakes. Simple mistakes. Gushue even takes this high jump up top. Ample chance to hit this nano. Yeah? Ample chance. Even chuck it on the Zarya, let her walk in, man. You have such a great opportunity. Again, hesitation is defeat when it comes to ultimates. Yeah? So we see a poor engage, we see a counter EMP. Because the engage was poor, we didn't follow it up. And now it looks like we're going to see Spark get full held. Yeah? Which are, again, mostly decided by mentality. Anyway, carrying on. Holding the corner here. This is probably the best position that the Zarya Brig and the comp has to play. Again, what are we thinking? We're thinking enemy team comes around the corner, our monkey can fight, a Zarya, Kree, maybe Brig as well. Sorry, a Zarya Brig, maybe Kree as well. Can push top. They can even drop behind if they want to, right? So this is probably the best position that Spark have to play. Let's see how they play it. Again, they're playing into a very difficult comp. And it's nice to see the whole enemy team coming around focusing the monkey. Because again, they're coming around so quick. You know, we're leading with the Reaper TP. We're all peeking the corner at the same time. We can see this beautiful line. Wait, I'll scroll back a bit just so you can see it. Right, we're seeing this beautiful line from these three players that came around together and peaked. We're seeing the Reaper TP up top and drop, right? So we have a lot of potential to force this monkey out. If we can force him out quickly, then Spark has nothing. Yeah. So again, really good from this comp. And again, that's what this comp allows them to do. This isn't a map where EQO is going to have to contest a flanker, which means that he has freedom now to force forward, force out the monkey. Yeah. Again, really nice to see. Is there anything really Spark could have done in that situation? Kind of difficult, right? Again, it's very difficult for them to scout. And if they can't scout, then they're never going to hit their dives at the right times. I think this is more of a lesson of why we're not seeing the monkey comps as much. Because again, if we have a Brig comp, sorry, if we have a Brig Zang comp, what have we got? We've got Tracer that can scout, we've got Ball that can scout, we've got Sombra that can scout, we've even got Diva that can fly up and scout, you know? We have a lot of players that can scout, which means it's very easy to hit our dives at the right time, even if we're playing versus a comp like this, right? And we can also play a little bit slower because we aren't wholly reliant on one hero. Whereas when we're playing Monkey, not only can we not scout, because we've only really got one flanker, but also we're wholly reliant on one player getting value, which means one mistake, one time our Monkey gets pushed out before he can cleave, and we lose the whole defense. Yeah. Again, this is just kind of a reason why we don't see the Monkey comps as much anymore. And it looks like that's going to be the end of the series. It's a pretty sad exit from from Spark, to be honest. They had a mediocre season, and a very, very mediocre performance in the play-ins. Did they have a few moments of brilliance? Yes. Earlier in the season, when Ashe was really good, they had some good matches from Shy. But right now, all they have left of them is this kind of idea that apparently Guxue is just such a great monkey that we don't even need to try another comp. We picked a comp that is probably the most we picked a comp that is probably the most reliant on communication out of any comp, and then we've chosen one of the teams that is famously bad at communicating to play it, which is why we're seeing those mistakes. Yeah, I think one more time I'm gonna go back and look at that Shy flank, because again, this is just indicative of this is just, I don't know, like these are the types of mistakes that you can't afford to make. It's not like a complicated, it's not a complicated comp to play, right? When you're given these opportunities, you've got to take them. Sorry, let me try and find it. I forgot this match is so short. It's this one here, right? So enemy team, not enemy team, sorry, Spark, stabilizing in a good position. What does the comp allow them to do? It allows them to make these rotations. Again, perfect. What would we see? We'd see them rotate around, we'd see them play top, take control of top. Once they have control of top, they can jump onto backline, they can force cart, they have all, the world is their oyster, yeah? Instead, what do we see? We see Spark, we see Shy commit to this flank. He has ample time to get back to his team. What does he do? He's trying to, pop shots at an enemy Sombra. Doesn't hit a single one. Does he hit one here? He hits one. Nice, brilliant, brilliant. Great use of time, great use of his life. Great use of a fight that took, over a minute to set up, because you had that opening engage, right? Why are we seeing teams get full held? Oh, sorry, why do we see Spark get full held here? Shy has to take a lot of responsibility for this one, yeah? Also, just quickly to recap, because we're going to player stuff after this. This fight here, why Coldest doesn't see this opportunity to nano, I will never know, right? Again, what do we think about with the way that we're opening fights with High Noon? What does High Noon do? It forces enemies to hide. Focus on the backline. What do they do when we see this High Noon? We see them hide. We see them in a poor position. What else do we see? Right? We see our Tracer setting up a flank. We see our Zarya, our Brig, close enough to push in. We see our Monkey poised to take a dive. What else do we see? We see a Nano, right? We see a Nano. But do we see it get pulled? No. Doesn't get pulled. Team misses their opportunity. Now, our Tracers use Recall. Our Monkeys had to use Primal. Our Brig, our Zarya, no longer ready to fight. Yeah? So, we had the options. We didn't take them. We got full held.